أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. We seek refuge in God from Satan, whose end is nearing, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Tonight we start with Surah 70, and maybe beyond, depending on our teacher, Edip Yuxel. Take it away.
Should I read the Arabic or only English?
No Arabic.
Okay. A questioner may question...
Surah 26 prohibits reading Quran in Arabic for non-Arabic people. Surah 26.
26?
Yep. You didn't know that? Come on.
Oh, yes.
Alhamdulillah. He knows everything, that's why. Yeah, Surah 26, remember this. It says, do not prohibit the reading of Quran in the language other than what the people understand. Because it said that, in fact it says, no, it doesn't say that. I was going to say it sounds Chinese to them. It sounds like a different. God says they will not be blamed if they don't believe,
yes,
if you read it to them in a different language. Okay, back to Edip.
A questioner may question the inevitable retribution. For the disbelievers, none can stop it. From God, possessor of the highest height. The angels, with their reports, climb to him in a day that equals 50,000 years. This question has been questioned to every messengers, and about the last day, about the end of the world, and always people has been ridiculed this day, but in the future, when we be close to the end of the world, for example, about 200 or 250 years later, this question will be very widespread, and everybody will ask this question, and Muslims, million or billion of Muslims will discuss this subject with disbelievers, and all verses about the end of the world will become a real fact, and the believers will know the end of the world, and the unbelievers will ridicule this, will mock at them, and they will create a great dispute between believers and unbelievers. But only we now also discuss this matter, and when we say the end of the world will be in that time, all unbelievers will ridicule us. They will ask when. Here our God gives us the relativity of the time. Says a day of your Lord, or a day of heaven, divine day, is equal to 50,000 years, your years. In another words, we see that this may be 1,000 years. These two different scales show us that time is not absolute. It is relative. For example, I think everything is relative to us. For example, heat is relative to our heat. We have 37 Celsius degree. If the weather more than this, it is heat to us, but if less than this, it is cold to us, the weather. For example, the the density of our meat, what do you say? What? Flesh, yeah. The density of our flesh, it has a density. And if we touch something that has more density, we say this is hard, solid, and if less than it, we say it is soft. And we compare, we conclude, we get information about our environment by our possessions, yes. Standards, yes, thanks. And also our standard is our life. We live about 70 years in this world. Our scale is these 70 years. A fly, the standard of fly is 3 months, about 3 months. 3 months of a fly is equals our 50 years. This is standard. And
how old are your dogs, Lydia? The oldest one is how old?
Right now, 10.
In human life is.
About 60, 65.
Okay, so this is what Edip means. Yeah, so the dogs escape, yeah.
And here, in the verse 4, there is a word that has 2 or 3 meanings. Word ruh. Here it has been translated as reports, or revelation. In Quran, we can find these words used for revelation or for Gabriel, an angel. It has both 2 meanings, and here Rashad has translated it as with their reports. Okay. That's all. Do you have any question about these 4 verses? May I?
I think we should point out here that Gabriel is this is his only job, and he's the only one who does the job of carrying revelations from God to the world. Any new information or new revelations, something that was never known before, comes from God to this world through Gabriel. So this is why one of his names is the Spirit, or the revelation. Because when God says, I blew into Adam from my Spirit, it's a word. Or Jesus called the word of God a word from God, because he was created by a word. Be, a word from God. Be, and he was. The same with Adam. And Gabriel brought that word to Mary, if you remember. So, here the angels go to the first universe, carrying reports about things happening here as well. So, and they were given the relative speed. You know, just like Lydia said, the dog is 10 years, but in human terms, it will be 60 years. We're told here that if you travel a distance in one day, the angels, in 50,000 years, the angels will cut it in one day. In Carl Sagan's last novel, he concluded that the speed of light is very slow. It really is, because nothing will be done in the universe if things were happening at the speed of light. And our favorite example here is the Prophet Muhammad's ascension to the first universe. If he were traveling at the speed of light, he would still be in 1/100th of the Milky Way galaxy. He would still be going on his way. Of course, that did not happen. He went and came in the same night. God took him up in the same night.
There is a famous equation about the relativity of the light. And according to this equation, when you exceed the speed of light, there is no time. The time becomes 0.
So this is the theory of relativity of Einstein. If you travel at the speed of light, time disappears. If you travel faster than the speed of light, you can go into the negative.
It may be wrong.
Huh?
It may be
no,
wrong.
not wrong. let us say, let me explain it very quickly. Our picture travels at the speed of light. Okay. If you turn the light on, I will see it at the speed of light. So the person, Mahmoud, will see this later than me because there is a fraction of a second. So once I turn this light on, I will see it first and Mahmoud will see it because it's traveling at the speed of light. Our pictures travel at the speed of light. If the sun is turned off for a second, we will see this after 8 minutes because it will take 8 minutes for the light. So the picture of anything travels at the speed of light. So let's say Edip scratched his ear and then sneezed. Scratched his ear and then sneezed. Now this, somebody's taking a picture from a mile away. Let's say somebody can take a picture from a mile away. When he scratches his ear, after a fraction of a second, they will see that, the camera will see that and will take a picture. Because his picture is traveling at the speed of light. Okay? So at the speed of light from here to there, it will take a certain amount of time. And then after that he will sneeze. So let us say I am here and I'm going to travel with his picture at the speed of light. So if he's scratching his ear and I'm traveling with that picture at the speed of light, I will always see him frozen in that position. Okay? This makes sense? Because I'm traveling with him at the speed of light. That picture will be still. So now, let's say he sneezed before he scratched his ear. So, but if I go faster now at the speed of light, I will see his picture when he sneezed before that. Did I confuse everybody? So I'm traveling with him at the speed as he was scratching his ear. So, but if I travel faster than the speed of light, I will see his picture when he sneezed, which was a few seconds before he scratched his ear. So I go in the past, because I'm going faster than the speed of light. If I go even faster than that, I would see him put his glasses on, which is something that happened before he scratched his ear. So let's say even if I walked in the room as he was scratching his ear, and then I take off with his picture at the speed of light, I would see what happened in the past before I came into the room.
Rashad?
This is how I'm trying to simplify it. I have probably complicated it.
Let me.
But this what if you go at the speed of light, then time will stand still. I will always see him holding his. If I travel at the speed of light, time stands still. He's holding his ear. Yes, if I go faster, I will see what he did before I came into the room. He sneezed. He put his glasses on. Whatever happened before.
May I give you an example? Interesting example.
Okay, confuse us more.
1,400 years, light years far away from us. Let's think a star. There are many stars that farther away. From that star, let's think that there is a civilization, or we went there, but just now we are there, and we are taking the photo of this Earth with a very sophisticated telescope and detailed. We could get the picture of people, persons, and we could take the picture of Muhammad and the bottle of Badr from that star. It is possible, but
yes,
impossible.
Those pictures are traveling in space now.
Yes, because just it will
reach that star only now.
Yes, only now.
Things that were happening on Earth 1,400 years ago are reaching objects in heaven that are 1,400 years, light years away. It's true. Also, if that star explodes right now, we will not see it for 1,400 years.
Yes.
Because that's how long it will take for the speed of light to come here. The speed of light is very slow. And what we're told here in verse 4, that the angels travel, what we spend 50,000 years traveling, if we travel at our maximum speed, which is the speed of light, the angels will do it in one day. And by the way, this is not a fixed relationship, because it can be different. It depends on where you are in the universe. For example, you go to the moon, your day will be 14 of our days. This is something we can do now. We can go to the moon, and you're going to have 14 of our days in continuous day, light. and then 14 nights, 14 days that equal one night on the moon. If you go to Jupiter, you're going to have 365 days of light. The day equals one of our years. And even on Earth, if you go to Alaska, you're going to have 6 months a day. No, but this is different. So it depends on where you are in the universe. That our day is different compared to their day. Back to Edip.
Verse 5. Therefore you shall resort to a gracious patience. You must be patient, a gracious patience. For they see it far away, while we see it very close. The day will come when the sky will be like molten rocks, will be like lava. The mountains will be like fluffy wool. No friend will care about his close friend. When they see them, the guilty will wish he could give his own children as ransom to spare him the retribution of that day. Also his spouse and his brother, even his whole tribe that raised him, even all the people on earth, if it would save him. Here we see the horror of that day, that people will give up from everything that he likes, he loves, and but that day there is no ransom. And also this describes the selfishness of these believers. They are selfish and they will want to change everything, to give as a ransom everything that they love, that they have.
They probably give up God in this world for the sake of their spouse or parents or children or whatever. But on the day of judgment they want to give up those people.
The love of these believers, when they love something, their love is because of their selfishness. They love, for example, their children. They are because they have benefit. They do not love anything. They don't expect benefit. For example, they do not do anything secretly. They do good things. Because they are in fact selfish, but apparently you may not see it. Any people who do not believe in hereafter, they are selfish in this world. Let's go on. 15. No, it is a flame, eager to burn. It calls on those who turned away, those who hoarded and counted. Indeed, the human being is anxious. Verse 17 tells us that hell will invite people. In Quran we find that Allah personalized the substance. Understand? For example, in chapter 41, 21, verse 21, we see God makes everything speak up. Makes everything speaks up. For example, in 41:11, we see earth and heaven speak. In chapter 23, 62, the record speaks. And chapter 50, verse 30, hell speak. And chapter 27, 82, computer speaks. God makes everything speak up. But what is speaking in our language? You may understand speaking is only by words. But Quran explain the word speaking. The word speak. In 341, we see gesture symbols also is another way for speaking. Allah says for Zechariah, your son is not to speak with anybody for 3 days except gestures, by symbols you can speak. These exceptions show us that symbols or anything that symbol gestures are also way of speaking.
Signals.
Signals, yes. Verse 18, those who hoarded and counted, this is the one of the important character of these believers. They hoarded the goods, earthly goods, and they are so they are very careful about the substances of this world. And also we can see this character in chapter 74, verse 12-15. And verse 19 is very interesting. Indeed, the human being is anxious. In Arabic we see it has been created as anxious. The word has been created. I searched about this because Allah says in chapter 95 verse 4-5, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. We have created the human being in the best manner. Allah, and in another verse, please open chapter 32, verse 7. He perfected everything He created. He perfected everything He created. Allah's creation is perfect. But here we see that human being has been created anxious. Apparently, we may see a contradiction between those verses. But if we carefully research on the word khalaqa, we see in Quran when God say about our creation, when mentioned about our creation, He says خلقنا الإنسان, خلقنا, we created. And Allah, when mentioned about His creation, He says always He created best, in best manner. But here it is خلق, has been created, not we created. How do you say in English for this? خلق, unknown. The subject is unknown here.
Passive. Is it passive tense?
Passive, yes, passive tense. For example, we can see the passive tense in chapter 4:28. It describes the weakness of human being. خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ. You can see that verse. And also the human being has been created hasty, chapter 21:38. And when Allah describes the weakness and anxiousness and hastiness of the human being, He always describes this as خُلِقَ, not خَلَقْنَا. It shows us with our free will, we change our creation.
Where is Martha? Is Martha here?
Yeah.
Okay, what is the grammatical, what is the term, linguistic term for something that was created instead of I created? Oh, okay, so it's passive is the right.
Maybe,
I wasn't
yeah.
sure. No, but the human being can make himself worried, as you will see in the next verses. In other words, the human being is made something. It's made by the human, not by God. Yeah, right.
We can see in Quran, فَتَبَارَكَ اللَّهُ أَحْسَنُ الْخَالِقِينَ. Allah is the best of the creatures, the best creator of creators. أَحْسَنُ الْخَالِقِينَ. There are many creators.
You can create, in other words, we can create our own misery or our own happiness.
And the angels also.
Well, God instructs, they follow God's laws, they carry out God's laws.
وَقَدْ خَلَقُوا إِفْكًا. Also they create lies.
Just to bypass these linguistic
Okay.
tricks.
Somebody floats around.
Dark gray car with the lights on. Small, dark, gray.
It's more in the street.
Is it parked in a parking lot or?
Yes, it's on parking lot. It's right there by the door.
Yula, get the make of the car next time. Not now.
Right.
Could be.
It's
Fort Temple?
But Emily will find out.
It's a
Very.
Okay, go on.
It's a dark.
Yes, verse 20. If touched by adversity, despondent. If blessed by wealth, stingy.
What kind of car is it?
It's numbers.
No.
Except for the worshippers, who always observe their contact prayers. Part of their money is set aside for the poor and the needy. They believe in the day of judgment. They reverence their Lord's requital. Their Lord's requital is not taken for granted. They keep their chastity. They have relations only with their spouses or what is legally theirs. Anyone who transgresses these limits is a sinner, and the believers keep their word. They are trustworthy. Their testimony is truthful. And it ends with the same close statement. They constantly observe their contact prayers, salat, on time. It's like the same verse 23. There are some qualifications, some behaviors of Muslims, important behaviors. First, they observe their contact prayers, and we see this statement also in 23 verse 2, and there are many common verses between here and the beginning of chapter 23.
You say, and I make a note of this for the index. Traits of the believers. Oh, chance. Okay, go ahead.
Part of their money is set aside. The word-by-word translation, they have a part in their money. A part there is known by people. This shows us that charity, the amount of zakat, is known by people. Specified. حق معلوم. 24. Part of their money is set aside. The amount of the charity is known by people.
Give me this back to correct.
Okay.
Specified portion.
Yes.
Specified portion of the money is
Specified.
set aside.
معلوم. And there are parallel verses here between 23 and chapter 23. For example, you see the parallel verse in chapter 23, verse 4. It says, it's specified as zakah, just word zakah. Verse 30, only with their spouses, or what is legally theirs. This is about captives of war. If
No,
war,
no, it is not.
it's not. In chapter 4:25, Allah gives us permission to marry with captives of the war.
No, it is not.
Please open chapter 4, verse 25.
Okay, look in the new translation.
Okay.
Edip inherited some of the old stuff where they had wars and captives. What is legally theirs covers all the methods of marriage in the world. There are places where there is no marriage, but a man and a woman will live together forever and have their children, and the society will know that these belong to each other. You don't have anything like that. So the Quran covers all the situations. There are common law marriages in this country, and the Quran recognizes that. That's what legally theirs means.
Interesting. And is there any question about this?
I have a few comments.
Let me talk about.
Okay, 425 talks about slaves.
Mhm.
425 talks about slaves.
Yes, slaves. You can marry with them.
Right, but not all captives.
Oh, okay.
Okay, this is very important to note that the people who do not observe, the worshippers who do not observe the contact prayers are anxious. Anxious, I really want a stronger word than anxious. In Arabic, halu'a is worried, always worried, nervous and anxious and worried, always worried. A human, yeah, jittery and worried, depressed, and anxiety and worry. If touched by adversity, they become despondent, and when blessed with wealth, they are stingy. Okay, now you can ask yourself these questions: Do you worry? Number two, do you become despondent when something bad happens to you? Number three, are you stingy when you have money? If you have these three traits, then you do not belong with the worshippers, the believers. I remember my father's teacher had a debate with some of the mullahs, and he trapped him into this. He said, do you worry a lot? He said, yeah, we're humans, we worry. They said, if something bad happens to you, do you become upset? He said, yeah, we're human beings, we do that. And then he said, so I said, well, then you don't belong with the worshippers who observe the salat prayer, because in verse 22 it says, إِلَّا الْمُصَلِّينَ, except those who observe the salat prayers. So the lesson is that if you do observe your contact prayers, this will cool you down. You will not worry, you will have nothing to worry about. No fear, no worry. And you will not be despondent when adversity happens. You will remember what the Quran says, that you may dislike something which is good for you. You may not get the job that you want, but God knows it is not good for you, and you accept that. So you will not be despondent, you will not be miserable because you didn't make it in the job interview. So then we have a bunch of traits of the believers. They always observe their contact prayers, verse 23. 24, a specific portion, 2.5% of their net income is set aside for the poor and the needy, 25. In 26, they believe in the day of judgment. These are all traits of the believers. 27, they reverence their Lord's requital. They worry about it. In other words, they don't want it. They know how bad it is. Just making God angry. God doesn't get angry, by the way, but violating His commandments. 28, the Lord's requital is not taken for granted. They always, in other words, when you look at this, you'll be severe against yourself. You will not be lax. You will judge yourself according to these criteria and make sure that you're a believer. You will be strict with yourself. Number 29, they keep their chastity. So, you look at this verse 29 and you keep your chastity. You will not be lax or careless. Keeping the chastity is something that is unusual in this country, because the society evolved so much in the last few decades. Maybe I should get you the piece of paper that Phil handed me. Just 1 second. It's appropriate to this. It's for all those born before 1945, which probably includes me only. And okay, but here it says, we were certainly not before the difference between the sexes was discovered, but we were surely before the sex change. We made do with what we had, and we were the last generation that was so dumb as to think you needed a husband to have a baby. No wonder we are so confused and there is such a generation gap. But we survived, okay. I think there are some other points here that along the line that we were the last generation that was so dumb as to think you needed a husband to have a baby. So in other words, what happened in the last few decades is really very harmful to the people. And we see what happened with AIDS, the spread of venereal diseases. Yes, lesbian mothers. Things that those who born in before 1945 never heard of these things. But verse 29, the believers do not take it lightly. 29. I'm writing an appendix on chastity and virginity for our children. Our children better be different from the other children. It is your responsibility to teach your children for their own good that they must be virgin on their wedding night. And I'm talking about boys and girls. And I'm going to show in the appendix how the happiness of your children depends on that. The price is just too high if they don't follow this verse, this very short verse, 29. They keep their chastity. The price is really too high. Now, even from the physiological and the physical point of view, the boys and the girls, when they mature first and they're ready they're not ready. Physiologically, they may have their menstruation, or the voice may change, the boy's voice may change, but physiologically and anatomically, they are not really ready for sex. But in this country, they delve into sex without being ready, and they hurt themselves, and they pay the price when they grow up. This is from the purely physical and physiological point of view. But from the practical point of view, God sees to it that those who violate this, our boys and girls must be taught not to violate this, that they must keep their chastity, because when they do that, they pay from their happiness. They will not have a happy marriage. They will not have a happy life. And mind you, it is not easy. You must teach them that it is not easy to keep your chastity, especially in a society like this. Joe Sobrin is a reporter with the Los Angeles Times, and he had a wonderful commentary only yesterday or the day before. It says these boys, they go out and they have sex as if there are no consequences. But the consequences are abortions, dangerous things that happen to, and the children who have, these boys have no intention of raising them or supporting them. They create a lot of misery. That was Joe Sobrin's commentary, and he is not a Muslim. But here we are reading the Quran, and God knows what is good for us. And He is telling us that the believers must keep their chastity. You know, all of you are young, and you have children who are growing. And I want to repeat and emphasize and re-emphasize that it is your responsibility. If you just do your part, God will do the other part. You cannot just leave them to the world out there. You have to do your part by teaching them what the Quran is saying, what God is saying. Because if you really love them, you want them to be happy when they grow up. And one source of misery will be to break these laws. They are not physiologically ready. They'll be breaking God's law, and the price is too high. And I know you do want them to be happy. So, I'm going to write this appendix in detail. And you can use it, okay? Use me to give them these instructions. It is very difficult to be a father or a mother and you talk to children about sex. It's a kind of awkward. But if you use the Quran, tell them this is what God says. Here's the appendix, read it. And God will help you and will protect them. So, and they emphasize to them that it is not easy. You must exert, tell them they'll have to exert a lot of control. Because the temptation is so great out there. And you are helping them this way when you tell them it is not easy. But you must exert for your own happiness and your own good. You must exert a lot of control. You must resist. You know, they have a big thing saying, say no to drugs. But you never say no to sex. Even though it is disastrous. Is there? Well, subhanallah. Okay. Yes, this is a shock.
Yeah, before they always say, use contraceptives, whatever, they always say first and say no. Other substances are. They always say no.
Because this, I think it was Valentine's Day at the university, and they distribute free condoms. It's like telling them, go have sex, They don't realize what they're doing and how much unhappiness they're causing to these kids. But this is good news. Now God is forcing, God says in Surah 41 verse 53 that God will show them His signs in the horizons and within themselves until they realize that this is the truth. This is what's good for us. There is a big campaign in the country against alcohol. They don't do it because God said so, but they are forced by the disasters, the social disasters and the broken families and the depression that is caused by alcohol, the hangovers and headaches, diseases. Now, there's a book in the market, new book that is called You Are What You Drink. I've mentioned it before. And it lists unbelievable, disastrous health problems from alcohol. Because it dissolves your brain. I mean, I'm talking about cancer, blood pressure, heart disease. Established, scientifically established. Liver disease, of course, yes, known long time ago. And the same is happening with violating this verse 29. They keep their chastity. The same thing is happening. There are unheard of diseases coming out. AIDS is one of them. Uncurable. Skin cancer exposure. You're telling me that now you're telling me that now the females have a disease that is similar to AIDS. I heard about it a couple of weeks ago. You want to tell us more? Young girls who are sexually active, because they're not physiologically ready. It takes maybe 10 years after the voice in the boy changes and the menstruation of the girl, maybe 10 years to really be ready to be pregnant and to be in a marriage relationship. So God knows, God created us and knows what is good for us. So if you think I spend too much time on this, it's deliberate. Because you have a lot of responsibility. There are lots of beautiful, wonderful kids running around here, and they must be protected. Like I said, don't worry, you just do your part. And you must know that your children are in God's hand. You can't be with them every time. But God chaperones your children. You're a person of God. And you must have that confidence. You must know that God is with your children, wherever they go. If they're riding a bicycle in the middle of the street, or they're out with other people, subjected to all the temptations of this society, don't worry. Drugs or sex or accidents, your children are in God's hand, and you must have that confidence. And being the oldest of you, I've raised 2 kids, I know that. I'm speaking from experience. And I've seen how much God's protection is marvelous. And they have seen how you just do your part, and God will do His part in the most magnificent ways. So I have relations with anybody else. In fact, this is repeated in verse 30. It says they have relations only with their spouses or what is legally theirs. And so there's a lot at stake. It is just not worth it violating these laws. These are very harsh. The punishment is very harsh. It seems out of proportion. So if you want to test it, go ahead. You're going to pay through the nose. If you want to abide by God's law, then you attain a lot of happiness and you avoid lots of problems. Okay, any questions? Yes.
How do you determine whether or not someone's what if someone's giving money or something just
Right, they're being selfish. Like the fellow who donated $1 million to the cancer center, but it had to be announced over the microphone in the stadium. Okay. This is showing off, and he's doing it for selfish reasons. Maybe, I mean, he has to be a believer in God to give things secretly, but the criterion is whether the person is cutting a portion of his money and giving it to the poor or not. The minimum is 2.5%. If the person is giving away at least 2.5% of his or her money to the poor, then they're all right. Farhan. Yes. This is verse 30. Yeah. Yes, or is very important. Yes. Yes. This is the Quran is so accurate that you have to pay attention to what Farhat is just saying. Or and. There's a verse that says you shall observe Hajj and the Umrah. And I had translated it, maybe even in the old translation, or Umrah. But we're supposed to observe in pilgrimage. There are 2 things that must be observed: Hajj and the Umrah. They must be done. So this is a similar. The difference is just a dash, wa or aw. That's the difference. You really have to pay attention to these things.
Yes, here, if you have spouses, you don't have legally.
Right.
Yes, interesting.
See, because you either got married or you either got together without the benefit of marriage. I don't want to tell you that joke again. But the guy in Africa who wanted to know the secret of happy marriage, and somebody, what is marriage? So there are places in the world where there is no marriage.
What does it mean? Legally theirs? Can you explain it?
Yeah, legally means there may be societies where when the people reach the age of 21, they're actually engaged at the time of birth in some of those societies. They had a boy in the family and said, this will be for my daughter. Okay, this is the tribe chief or something. Because the daughter is not born yet, maybe. But these are political connection. So when they reach 21, they ship the boy and the girl into their new house and they become husband and wife forever. She's legally his and he's legally hers. But there was no marriage ceremony or no such thing as marriage. So the Quran must cover all situations. They legally belong to each other. In this country, common law marriages are legal as far as God is concerned. There are two people who decided to live together forever and raise a family. The intention is for being together forever. They don't go through the state and the papers and the priest or the justice of the peace or anything. But they live together forever, and that's legal as far as God is concerned.
Many places like psychiatric hospitals and whatever, the adolescents that have the most serious emotional problems, those are coming up with serious symptoms. Typically, the children of parents who were engaged in a lot of illicit sexual activity and committed adultery. A lot of these young people, they don't have any sense of genuine love and attraction. They, in fact, even at times express hatred and resentment toward their parents because they can't see their parents as loving each other. These are the ones that, in fact, are the most serious. I haven't, God knows, but I haven't come in contact with a single case having extremely serious emotional problems and this type of thing that has not included some kinds of adultery or disregard for marriage.
By the way, I must clarify that when I talk about problems in marriage, there are always problems in marriage, but for people who keep their chastity until their marriage, they will have the regular problems of bickering over the budget and what to be spent where and which house to pick out and which room should be the living room and which room should be. These are normal problems. I'm talking about serious problems that are the price of the improper marriage.
You just mentioned that parents bestowing children from that verse. In verse in Surah 4, verse 19, this woman saying that, this commandment, they can't do that and can inherit their life against their way of life if they're promised as children.
No, this is inheritance of the things that the wife possessed. It is not inheriting the person. I think I clarified this in the new translation. You shall not inherit your wives forcibly means you cannot force her to write a will giving you everything, giving the husband everything. This is what it means. But arranged marriages are done all over the world, and a lot of them are very successful. Well, this is prohibited in the Quran. Marriage against anybody's will is prohibited in the Quran anyway. So if a man inherits the wife in the sense that you're saying, and she's happy and he's happy and they get married, fine. Then widows can get married. There's no problem. There's a Jewish tradition about the brother marrying his brother's widow. It's an old tradition in Judaism. There's nothing wrong with it if everybody's happy. Yeah, well, no, this is against the Quran. Pardon? Speak slowly.
There are quite a few societies.
Yes, a few societies like that. Actually, in this society, you find everything here in this society. Any other questions? Marie?
Very important. The marriage is not legally, but many people here in the United States, they live together, and when they want to live, they say, yeah, we like each other, we live, but they just, because they don't want to be legally.
Yes.
Yes, and that's,
It's only okay if they decide that they are together forever and that they will raise a family, the children and everything, as a couple forever. The intention must be forever. They may break up next month or next year, but if the intention was they're getting together forever, then it's okay. It is not okay to get together with the intention that if things don't work out, goodbye.
Because most of them, they don't want to have that responsibility.
Right.
Yes, they want to live, and maybe they can have a baby by this living, but I think they don't want that. They have that responsibility, and but maybe they live for 15 or more than that years.
Like I said, if the intention was that they live together forever, then it's perfectly alright.
Some people get married and keep them together.
Yeah.
And they don't want to talk.
Right.
He put his intention.
Yeah. Some people get married and one or both have the intention of not being together forever. That's prostitution. Back to Edip and verse number what?
33. Their testimony is truthful. The verse contains another meaning also. They are stand firm in their testimony, and their testimony is truthful. And they stand firm in their testimony even if it causes loss or trouble for them. And the most important testimony is testimony for oneness of God. And also there are many other testimonies in this world, and they are stand firm and they are truthful in their testimonies. Verse 34, they consistently observe their contact prayers on time. Meanwhile, I want to tell you an interesting event in my life about this verse. The verse, chapter 29:45. Could you please open it? Chapter 29:45. You shall recite what is revealed to you of the scripture and observe the salat prayers, for salat protects from falling in sin and evil, and is the means for remembering God, which is even greater. God is fully aware of everything you do. This summer, I was preparing a book about the mistakes in Turkish translations. I was dealing about 40 verses, important verses. I gave the original to the for the copy to be copied on film. The person gave me back. I found that he missed 2 verses. He forgot to copy 2 verses, and only 1 verse is by mistake. He had taken it copy. The verse was this verse 29:45, and I told him that you must take these 2 verses that you have forgot, and not this. This wrong, because I wanted verse 39, chapter 45. It's supposed that I wanted chapter 29. He mixed 39 with 29. And I corrected it. Later, I received the 3 film, but I found that also he had mistake on this verse. Instead of 39:45, he made the same mistake and 29:45. It was very interesting because that time, a few times I delayed my salat, and I was not good that time about my prayer, and Allah reminded me about salat because God is fully aware of everything you do, you must observe your salat. Let's go on. 35. You couldn't understand.
You got verse 23, 34, and up to 57. When God says they continuously observe the Salat prayer. That's consistent with the sequence of the number of rakats in Salat. And another thing here is that we can see that Salat covers, protects, as God says, keeps the believers away from violating these laws of God.
Verse 24, chapter 24?
No. In the surah we're reading
Okay.
verse 23 and 34 add up to 57. Salat covers and protects and keeps the believer on the right path.
Okay. Verse 35. They have deserved a position of honor in paradise. What is keeping those who disbelieve from joining you? To the right and to the left they flee. How can any of them expect to enter the blissful paradise? Never. We created them and they know from what. Verse 40. I solemnly swear by the Lord of the East and the West, we are able. Rashad, I want to ask you a question about the Quran in the parentheses. I think it is swear of God. فلا أقسم برب المشارق إن لكم this parenthesis. I solemnly swear by the Lord of the East and the West, we are able to substitute better people in your place. We can never be defeated.
God speaks.
God swears by Himself. Lord of the East and the West, position of stars and position of moon and sun, also their rotation. Allah governs all the universe, and Allah says, فَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِمَوَاقِعِ النُّجُومِ I swear with the places of the stars, position of the stars. Here swearing is personal, I with I, but the second verse we see we, to substitute better people in your place, we can never be defeated. And we here can understand that Allah has many soldiers from angels and believers, and they cannot be defeated. Therefore, let them blunder and play until they meet the day that is awaiting them. That is the day they come out of the graves in a hurry, as if herded to the sacrificial altars. With their eyes subdued, shame will cover them. That is the day that is awaiting them.
Thank you very much. Good job. Are there any questions on the whole surah or anything?
Yeah, I just want to go back to what you asked you and just want to first make sure that's exact is in Quran and it's like a piece of does Quran require a Muslim to get married to some specifically specified rules and ways of that?
Yeah, the Quran consistently talks about marriage and making it official and everything. Yes, but I'm talking about generally in this country for people who never saw the Quran, never came across
So that's what I want
the
to
Quran.
If
Yes,
you are a Muslim, then you are obligated to those who marry according to the rules and the way this is
Yes.
supposed to be.
Marriage is a very organized institution according to the Quran, because God tells exactly who we can marry and who we cannot marry, and it's an elaborate and divine institution that is very organized. Yes, I'm glad you point this out.
Yeah, I got the wrong impression at least. The other thing was when you keep talking about God provides you, God helps you, God knows what you're going to do and things like that. Especially some younger ones, they may not think that, okay, if God wants me to get this job, I'm going to get it, so I'll sit down here. I'm not going to work. I'm not going to try.
That will be against the Quran.
Right. This is something that I want.
But be going against the Quran. The true believer is the hardest working person and the best producer in his job or her job, wherever they go. And they enjoy every minute of it. Believers are very hard workers and the most honest workers, and they are the best producers, and they enjoy every second of it. They're not lazy. God doesn't want the lazies. He wants people on the ball in His kingdom. Our teacher next Friday is FMA, and she's going to take the next 19 surahs, from Surah 70 to Surah 89.
Next 19 surah.
From Surah 71 to Surah 89. Yes, Robert.
So what's the motivational factor? We've talked about this before. The motivational factor for wanting to do better yourself, better, financially.
Very good. The Surah 16 says the rich believer is better than the poor believer. And Edip wanted me to change this for possible misunderstandings, but I did not, because God meant that. Remember, it says the rich believer and the poor believer, both are believers. Both are equally believing, but one of them is able to do things, is able to give to charity, and able to further the cause of God and spread the word of God and do things that will make a difference. So this is a motivation.
But is it also a natural thing, an okay thing to want to better your own circumstances, to want to say
without being frustrated? Yes. Yes, yes, absolutely. Because of that principle in Surah 16, you want to do things. You want to buy $1 million ad in the Wall Street Journal to say to the people, worship God alone. And you cannot do that unless you better your own circumstances.
You alluded to something. What is the origin? How do we know that these are the verses the way they're arranged in the Quran? And I was reading one verse that this number of verses are revealed to Muhammad first, and then different part of one surah, and then another part of another surah. How do we know that these are right?
Just buy a copy of the new translation. That's it.
The number 19.
Yeah. It's going to be mathematically sharp.
Confirmation of mathematical miracle shows us that it's correct.
Before the mathematics, consistent basically.
Yes, there are authorized printings, and they are the closest to the truth. We know the mistakes in them. There are 3 mistakes in the authorized versions of the Quran printed in Saudi Arabia or Egypt. Avoid the ones printed in Iran. They misspelled them and messed them up.
The verses, the numbering of the verses.
That's possible, but I know that they simplified, quote unquote, the Quranic Arabic, and they wrote it in
Turkey
in the modern. Also in Turkey.
Yes, misspelling.
Yeah. So the first Quran ever in history that is the way God wanted it will be printed from here, come out of here the next few weeks, inshallah. Farhad?
You mentioned about Persian translation. Another translation, its introduction mentions that another translation using Arabic translating it into Persian using the meaning that is they use in the Quran.
Yes.
Another translation.
Well, I have good news for you. There is a Farsi translation being done now from my translation. So we should have it in a year or so, inshallah. We are authorized Farsi translation. No. Sushan Ray? No. It's done by Behruz. You meet Behruz? Behruz Mufidi Shirazi. He's doing this. Just going very fast. Martha, did you say something? You're not reading your Muslim perspective, Ya Mushrif. You're not reading your Muslim perspective. Not maybe. You're not reading your Muslim perspective. It's right there. It's the answer to your question, yes. Perfect answer to your question in detail. So go read it. Now, any other questions while Martha's reading the answer to her question?
Find it, read it.
Can you what? What was what did she say now?
I said any of the questions that Rashad can avoid tonight by telling us to read them. That's very efficient, especially since the clock is 9.
Yes. Well, it takes a minute, but it answers your question perfectly. The answer is yes. The Prophet Muhammad was given specific instructions. Every time Gabriel released Quran from Muhammad's soul to Muhammad's memory, he gave him instructions as to where these 3 or 4 verses belong. And he wrote down those verses and he put the instructions next to them. So when he died, he left the complete Quran, but not in the order that God wanted for the world. He left the Quran with instructions on the side as to which surah goes after what surah and which verse goes after which verse. Exactly. They followed the instructions, they put the Quran together, but then Satan tricked them into adding 2 verses. And that was during Uthman's time. And this triggered the war between Ali and his family and Umayyads. And
That's the thing that you're referring to in the video. I read that part. The part about Ali and
right. There were 50 years of bitter war, but unfortunately the Umayyads won. So we got their version. We didn't get the version of the believers.
Did Gabriel come down to
No. He was an angel. No, he didn't see him as an angel. No, he didn't dream. Gabriel comes and takes and becomes part of Muhammad's body and releases Gabriel be the connection between Muhammad's soul and Muhammad's physical body. You didn't need to see him.
So it was almost like when you talk to death.
No, not like that. When the possession you lose your identity completely. If you are possessed by an angel or a demon or whatever, Nagma disappears and the other entity takes over completely, and you have no consciousness at all. But Muhammad is fully conscious. He just had these words come to him, and he would write down the verse. It's come to his memory, just like you're remembering something. You remember that you took a final exam 3 days ago, and the questions were this, this, and this, and you can write them down. So this is how he received.
That all along was the Spirit.
Oh yeah. Okay, well, whatever your dearest wish is, turn to God and ask Him for it. The best wish being to stay on the right path. Al-Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawm Ad-Din, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'een, Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim, Sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim, غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. By all means, look at that miracle on the wall and thank God, because there is no doubt that we are the luckiest people on the face of the earth. Alhamdulillah. Congratulations.